This is Dale Jr., and you're listening to Dirty Mo Radio.
Everybody talks about Kevin the prankster, and has he ever pranked you?
Well, I shouldn't say I'm off limits, because the minute I say that, he's going to come and get me. But I think there's that unspoken rule that don't mess with me, because I know where you sleep at night.
Welcome to Fast Lane Family with Kelley Earnhardt Miller.
All right, welcome to Fast Lane Family. In studio today, I've got Delana Harvick, the wife of JRM's most recent race winner, Kevin. They're both here this morning visiting with us, so it's good to have you guys. First off, I was thrilled to be in Victory Lane with you all.
I didn't even know you were there, so it was so nice to see you. Actually, right before the race, and I was like, oh, good. I hope you could be there and be in Victory Lane. And I know they've been close a couple times, and so just to get to Victory Lane, I know was a relief for everybody.
Yeah, it was really good. I knew you were there because I saw your tweet about riding up with Josh.
It was the trip from hell, but we finally got there.
Yeah. I was one of my thoughts was I wanted to ask you just exactly how much time does Josh spend with you guys?
Josh is with us a lot.
All the time,
and he lives close to us. So if something doesn't get done, in the office or whatever, he
could
happens
run
to
over,
pop by,
right.
Which is fine. It actually works out really well, and I know we give him a hard time, but he's a great guy, and he's he never stops, and he would do anything for Kevin and I. But as far as his entertainment value, it's high.
That probably just meshes well.
It does.
The entertainment value of the three of you guys is well worth it. So, much like me, you grew up in racing. I want you to talk about that and talk about your dad and his involvement in the sport and kind of growing up around racetracks.
Well, I did grow up in racing like you, just not on the same scale. My dad raced in the Nationwide Series or Late Model Sportsman or, back in the day. But he never really had, a lot of the sponsorship backing. I mean, I would go to races in a cube van in an open trailer, and that's how we would get to races and ride. And those are some of my fondest memories. But, yeah, actually, I was almost born at Caraway in North Carolina. My dad was racing, and my mom went into labor, and he sent her on to the hospital. He said, I got the feature to run, go to the hospital. And he ended up winning the feature, got to the hospital. I was born, and 3 weeks later, I was at a racetrack. And really,
history from there.
Yeah, I've never really not been at a racetrack.
The stories are so similar because we told the same about my dad and mom. And the day I came home from the hospital, my dad was racing. And the same thing through the 70s and early 80s for us. I remember the riding to the racetrack in the vans, the open trailers, all of that fun stuff, and that was good stuff. I was, already pretty much, in high school, going to college when my dad, was really on fire there in the late 80s and 90s. So I have a lot of those same fond
memories. But they're good
memories.
They're really, my dad, in the cube van that we had, there was a bucket back there because he would not stop to let me go to the bathroom. And I literally had to go to the bathroom all the time. So he finally just got a bucket and was like, if you got to go, shut the door and go. Because, you got to get to the racetrack and get practice and qualifying. But I'll never forget, we got one of those Crescent Cruiser vans, like, those big vans. And I thought we were like living the high life because I didn't have to ride in the cube van and I could actually ride in style. But I literally, that's how I grew up, going to the track, and I wouldn't trade that in those memories and that time with my dad or my mom too. My mom traveled as well, so those were good times.
Good stuff. What about racing? You tried your hand at that too, didn't you?
I had always wanted to race, but my dad was just not down with me racing. He was, kind of one of those old school Southern gentlemen, and girls just didn't do that. And I was not an old school Southern girl. I was very independent and very much knew that I wanted to race, but it was always a constant battle. They would try to make me do brownies and cheerleading and just girl things. And finally, I just said, I'm not going to do it. And he said, well, if you graduate from college, I'll get you a car. Clearly that's way too late. I wanted to
not
race.
really then. Not terribly.
Yeah, but
late,
you were racing.
I did the same thing.
You were
right
racing
after college.
Yeah, but these guys, I saw that Ella Gordon was in a car, and she's so young, and Kevin started when he was 5, and so in the grand scheme of things, he knew what he was doing, and it was way too late. But I got a car and ran a little bit, but then right after that, I met Kevin, and it just wasn't for me. It wasn't my time, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, same thing for me. And people always ask me that, why didn't you keep racing? And the same thing. My dad wanted me to go to college. I went to college. I got a job. I started doing well in my job. I started moving up, and just life circumstances
life happens.
Changed things for me. So talk about meeting Kevin. And I read a story about this, so I kind of wanted you to go further with kind of what struck you when you met Kevin, and what did you like about him?
Well, to be honest with you, I had actually, Todd Barrier, who worked at RCR and was Kevin's crew chief when he came in to run the Nationwide Series, his dad and my dad raced together growing up. So I grew up with Todd as sort of my big brother because I don't have any brothers and sisters. And I was always Todd's fallback of, Todd was always into cars, so he never had girlfriends. And if he needed a date, he would always call me and say, "Can you go with me? If you never wanted to show up somewhere alone, sure." And
she put that in quotes now, a date.
A date, yeah. He is still like my big brother. There was never anything,
right.
romance there. I mean, he literally was my big brother. And he said, "I've got this RCR Christmas party. It's a sit-down dinner. Like, I really need somebody to go with me." And I said, "Okay." I said, "But I've got a friend in town from L.A. Is there anyone you could find her to go with?" And he said, "Give me a minute. I'll work on that." Calls me back the day before. "Yeah, there's this kid. He's coming in. He's gonna drive the Nationwide car next year." And I said, "As long as he's not a jerk, I don't want to set her up with a jerk."
Yeah.
"No, he's fine." Well, I didn't know that he had never met him before. So he's setting my friend up, and I'm setting her up with Kevin, who I don't know. And we walk in, and we're a little bit late, and Kevin fires off a sarcastic remark, and I fire back, and that was kind of it. Through the whole night, my friend and Kevin never really meshed. It just didn't work out, and we were getting ready to leave, and Kevin asked Todd, because he didn't know. He just knew I was there with Todd. The whole backstory.
Relationship, right.
And he said, "Are you guys together?" And Todd's like, "Oh, no, she's my sister." And he said, "Well, could I call her?" And Todd said, "Well, sure." And I thought, okay. So he goes, I'm going to call you tomorrow. And I thought, okay.
Okay, whatever.
Sure enough, he called me the next day. We went to dinner, and we've really never been apart since that day. Yeah.
That's awesome. So the smart ass comment got you.
It was. I mean, and honestly, clearly people know what a smart ass Kevin is, and I'm a smart ass myself, and I'm pretty outgoing, and I will tell you what I think, and I don't know. I think our personalities just meshed because, physically speaking, from what I had dated, through high school, college, whatever, in my dating life, Kevin physically was not anything. I remember bringing him home, and I used to date, football players or baseball players. Just I never in my life did I date anybody in racing. That was kind of my thing. That was my job, and I wasn't going to date anybody in that arena. And so I brought him home. My dad was like, "He's kind of little, isn't he?" And I said, "Well, I kind of like him." And so it all worked out.
That's awesome. So you talked about your personalities, and I kind of describe it. You're both outgoing, pretty much tell it like it is, honest book. Somebody asks you a question, you give them the honest answer straight between the eyes. So with all of that going on, what do you guys do to kind of unwind in downtime? What's private time for Kevin and Delana?
I know this is going to sound odd, but we're still kind of learning that, to be honest, because right after KHI, we shut KHI down. We had Keelan, so we're just now starting to figure out what a lot of people consider normal everyday life to some degree, because it was racing from the time we got up to the time we went to bed, and it wasn't a 9-to-5 job. You know what it's like to run a race team. So honestly, now it's learning to be a parent and to have that off time. We go to the beach now a lot more than we ever did, just because we have the time.
Right.
And now I'm having to find things to do with Keelan, because while he loves racing, he loves being around his dad, he needs to, go to the beach and play, and, we would love for him to play golf, and just taking him out and doing things.
Yeah, he needs to understand everything else that's out there.
Yeah, because there is a whole big world out there other than racing.
Yeah, that's very true. It's funny that you say that, because for us, life is LW and I and the kids, and coming here every day working, and, we talk to people, and they're like, "You guys, you just need to slow down." And it's like, we can't. Like, we look at our life and we say, what can we take out of our life? Okay. Can't take out the 3 kids. We can't take out the business. Okay. So what can we
now?
take out, right? Because it just consumes us. And so the same thing for us is like, can we find 2 hours this week to do XYZ? Nope. Can't find it this week. We traveled to Richmond. We've got busy days, this week, and we'll have to find that maybe next Saturday.
So I was going to ask you, with racing now, and did you know that this is something that maybe the girls wanted to do, or did you know, or
not really? I did not. I have not really exposed my girls to racing,
right?
And not other than us traveling to the races and whatnot. But we didn't buy a goat cart at age 3 or 2 or 4 or any of that kind of thing. This was, Carson getting involved was actually a conversation between her and Jimmy, and the series that she runs, and he said, "Hey, you want to try this out?" And she said, "Sure." And At first, in the first year, I didn't really think that she was going to stick with it, and she just got better and better and more determined. And as she got better, she liked it more because she likes to be the queen of everything. That's Carson.
But as a mom, are you just thinking, oh my God?
As a mom, I'm thinking surely something else will change. Surely something will come in and change their mind. And Carson, with this broadcasting and the things that she's gotten involved in, I want her to eventually do what she wants to do, but it's, for me, I know how hard it is to be a race car driver, and everybody's not going to make it. There's 43 or so, now in the Nationwide Series there's 40, but roughly 40 some people that can make 3 series, the top series, and I mean, if that's really what she wants to do, that's great, but I think there's so much more out there for her.
Yeah.
And I encourage the dance because I think she's always been a performer. She loves to sing. I encourage her to dance, and she's done gymnastics. She's done competition stuff to just be well-rounded in the sense that if she ever gets that opportunity to perform or act or who knows, I told her she could be a great choreographer. There's so many things that she could do. So
Kevin and I always talk about this, and we always joke about golf, and obviously you want your child to do what makes them happy,
right.
But what if Keelan does come to us and ask to race, and I don't know what I would say. I don't, you certainly want to foster that and their interest, but it's so hard. I mean, like to your point, there's 43 guys or girls out there, and I don't know. I just know what a tough, hard road it is. And to be honest with you, just because you're out there doesn't mean you should be out there.
You can do it, exactly.
And that's a hard reality of this business,
yes.
and it's not an easy business.
And that's not something you want to tell your child, no matter what sport it is.
Right.
If it's basketball or football, or Dale was that way growing up. I mean, he was this little short kid, and he wanted to try sports and do sports, but literally they didn't want to pick him, you know. And thank goodness we went to the military school, really for both of us, because we got to do sports. There it was, come one, come all kind of theory, and you got to play sports and pretty much try and do anything that you wanted to. Maybe you didn't get a lot of play time in the sport, but you at least got to sit on the bench.
Right, you were a part of the team. Yeah, I get that.
So that's something from a parent standpoint that you this whole theory of everybody wins, in the parenting world these days, it's just all hard.
It's very hard, and I'm learning all these lessons of how to, he's not that old yet, but and how do you sort of keep them grounded and realistic, but not crush, sort of that spirit and dreams. And that's a tough, because I don't want Keelan to grow up thinking he's the greatest at everything. I mean, I want him to try, but if he's not that good, then let's move on to something else that if he loves it, he loves it. That's going to be great. But that's a hard role as a parent, I think, to sort of foster that creativity, yet not false hope of whatever. And I'm not saying they all have to be professional athletes. They don't.
No, not at all.
They have to have an outlet to get out and do fun things. But, when I'm not going to be that kind of parent that's going to, if Keelan wants to go be an NBA basketball player, well, honey, look at mom and dad. It's probably not going to happen. But if you want to try, we'll certainly try.
Right. Yeah, I think you talk about not figuring it out, and he's young, but you've got to start thinking about it now, because it gets here before you know it. So we're going to switch gears to more Keelan in a minute, but we were just in the hallway, and Kevin was headed down to see Mike Davis, OMG. And so everybody talks about Kevin the prankster, and they can't wait till 360 and he gets involved over here somewhere. But has he ever pranked you and just really pissed you off? Like, does that happen on a daily basis, or he knows to leave you alone?
Well, I shouldn't say I'm off limits, because the minute I say that, he's going to come and get me. But I think there's that unspoken rule that don't mess with me, because I know where you sleep at night, and it's just kind of one of those things. And the hard part is mother function, Josh, is so easy. It's something that you just can't help. And he almost brings it on himself, because he's the guy that's around, and you can say, hey, why don't you go do that? No, I shouldn't do that. Oh, you should go do that. Sure enough, he's going to go do it, and it's going to be funny. And you can't, I swear to God, people think that we make these things up with Josh. We don't. It literally, it happens. It's kind of a reality series in the making, and, he's just funny. But no, Kevin really kind of leaves me alone, and I kind of leave him alone. It's just one of those things.
That's good. I've told them I'm off limits too. So.
I hope they do that, but I have this bad feeling that at some point you might not be.
You'll give me a heads up, won't you?
Well, see, that's the problem.
I
would give you the heads up, because I feel like I've got your back like that, but I don't think they'd tell me. I really don't.
They probably wouldn't, because they know us girls stick together.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears to Keelan. I was the parent of 3, and I have Wyatt, who is just a little older than Keelan. No bigger joy, in my opinion, than being a parent. I read an article when you were pregnant, and Kevin said he was going to take the carefree approach to parenting, and you were the planner. Is it working out like that?
It's funny. I am the planner in everything that we do. I have been really shocked at how much of an overprotective parent Kevin is. I really thought it would be the other way around, that I would be the overprotective parent. And I think if Kevin could put Keelan in a bubble, he would. Keelan had his first emergency room trip while we were both in California. We weren't here. And it was just like the world had ended. And it's a scary feeling to get that phone call. But, he's a boy, and things are going to happen. And not that you let them happen on purpose, but they're just into everything. And he was in the tractor with our neighbor, and he accidentally hit the spring-loaded door on the other side, and he just fell right out. It wasn't moving. They were just pretending to drive because he loves tractors. But it's constantly, and Kevin at home is just very, very, don't do that, don't do this. And I'm just, if it's not really going to hurt that bad, I need to let him I want him to figure it out for himself. So I've been surprised by that.
Yeah, it's figuring out you want them to know the limit. If they don't know the limit, then they don't know how far to go. So I agree with the boy thing, and that was very scary for me, having the girls prior to having Wyatt, and the rough and tumble. And Beth Bodwin told me the story once that one of her boys, and she has 4, God bless her, and that he was hanging from the mistletoe over the stairway playing like football with the mistletoe or something. I'm like, oh gosh, I just am not looking forward to that. So far, we're in pretty good shape.
You've avoided the emergency room.
We've avoided the emergency room, which is good. We've had our share of tumbles and all, but it's
the bad
fun.
thing is, I heard from a lot of my friends or even family, it won't be your last trip to the emergency room. And,
I know.
And I think I believe that, but I don't want to believe that. But
I think I am pretty cool under pressure for the most part, except when my kids get hurt. When my kids get hurt, I lose it.
Yeah.
I lose it. I literally, Carson, has had a couple bad wrecks in racing, and I can't.
That's one thing. I can't even put myself in your position and know what it must feel like to watch her and your baby. She's your baby, and I can't, and I would never. And even with Cindy Elliott, they showed her when Chase was getting ready to win Texas. She was as cool and calm, as collected as she could be. And I, for the most part, don't get that excited when Kevin, not excited, but I don't get that worked up when Kevin wins. Nervous. I did at Darlington only because I knew that was one that he wanted so bad. That was something really, really important to him. But for the most part, I'm pretty calm and cool and collected. And I just watched her. And then I can see Chase, and I'm like, if Bill and Cindy have a book of how to, I want that book, because I just watched Chase, and he's a good kid. Yes. Talent aside, that doesn't, but his demeanor and his personality, and just a good kid. And I need to know a little bit about how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you there. We'll get her to write that for it. Well, no more kids for me. I don't know about you. I don't know if I'll need it. Yeah,
I'm good.
I don't know if we'll need it. We can get her to write it for some other folks. So in parenting, what would you describe as kind of the biggest joy?
Everyone tells you that it's the greatest blessing of your life. And without having had a child, I thought, it can't be. I'm sure it's great, but it can't be that great. It's that great. Mm-hmm. It's that unbelievable to watch something that you have created, grow. And I'll be honest, the first 4 to 5 months, I wasn't.
You weren't that into it?
I wasn't. It's just one of those things where I needed that interaction with him, and I loved him, but I just, Kevin, I didn't travel very much because he wasn't that great of a sleeper, and so it was me at home with him, and I was struggling. I really was, just because I was frustrated that Kevin's life went on, and, here I ran a company, I was so involved, and then all of a sudden it was me and Keelan at home, and I wouldn't trade that for anything, but it was a big life-changing experience for me. So once about the 6 month rolled around and we could start to have interaction, and he was, making sounds and doing things, I really, really started to sort of really bond with him. And then just to watch it grow, and they're so smart, and they're such a sponge, and they're able to, they know so much more than they can communicate, which is scary to me. But when he comes out with these things, words or whatever he does, where did you learn that? How did you know that? And from the beginning, I'm very much a talker and explainer, and I like to tell Keelan, and I don't talk to him like he's a baby. I just, that's one of my big pet peeves. But I'll always explain things to Keelan, whether or not, maybe people say, oh, he can't understand that, he's too young. In my mind, if he's understanding that mommy's going to explain things to me from the beginning, I want him to know that. And I've always been very verbal with him. I read I would read my magazines to him. I just was constantly getting words in front of him. So I think that's helped him a lot. But just to watch him, his interaction, he's a very laid back, cool kind of kid. He's just, as long as something's going on, especially at the racetrack, he loves to be at the racetrack and watch. He's good. Like, he doesn't need that constant stimulation of stuff. He's just, he's chill. He likes to sit back and watch. But man, the minute he realizes that it's daddy's getting in the car and it's time to go, he will lose it. He is a daddy's boy, which kind of pisses me off a little. I mean, I love it.
I know,
but
me too.
I'm like, I do everything for you. And then Kevin's very involved, don't get me wrong. But I'm like, man, you don't miss me like that, or you don't, how about, do you love mommy like that? But boy, when he knows when he starts to put those booties on and he starts to fidget around, he will lose his mind. Yeah. Just cry and cry because he knows daddy has to go to work and he can't be with him.
Wyatt's totally the same daddy's boy. And if we're standing both at the crib in the morning to get him out of the crib, it's daddy.
Oh,
first thing he says, daddy, daddy home? Daddy?
He calls for daddy, and if daddy doesn't come, he'll look at me, even if he's smiling, and he's like, moo, moo, which means move. Well, I'm all you got, buddy. So
sorry,
if you want a clean diaper
me.
and you want breakfast, you better start giving mama some love.
Yeah. But when it's just me, then we're like two peas in a pod. It's like he's gone for a day or two, and he kind of gets it out of his mind, and it's mommy, 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 which I love. But I understand. I get it there. So what do you find that we've talked probably a little bit about the struggle just in terms of, raising your kid and what you want them to be like and how that works. What's the struggle for you in parenting?
The struggle is that I want, an independent, strong son and person, and he is that. But on the flip side of that, he's independent and strong, and so when mommy needs him to do certain things and that's not what he wants to do, then we have a struggle on our hands.
Oh, yeah.
And I want that, and he's very, very hard-headed, which clearly he gets that from both of us. And I know I'm going to be in for a little bit of a fight there, but I just want him to be a good person. I want him to be strong and strong-willed, and I see that in him. But as far as what he wants to do, or I don't care. I honest to God, I don't care. I just want him to be happy.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. And I told somebody the other day, I said, I think he could actually be a Walmart greeter, because anybody that comes by, he's, hey, waving, bye-bye. And I'm like, well, I think that could be a career path for you, because I think you'd be good at it.
That's funny. You were talking about the sponge and the words, and no, obviously, is every child's. They have this 6-month, years worth of no.
And apparently I say it more than I realize, because it's, for a long time, he would just say, no, mommy.
Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't realize I said it that
right.
much.
And so we're on this thing with Wyatt. He says he hates everything. So when it's night time, hate night. Bath time last night, hate bubble bath. He can hate daddy. He can hate night. He can hate bubble bath. He can hate eating. He can hate cookies. And so we're like, where does this come from? Well, obviously I have a teenager, so we hear that every now and then. But even driving in the driveway the other night, something was, I don't even remember what it was, and I said, I hate how that sits right there and something. And you say it just so, organically, and you don't mean anything by it. And I thought to myself, and I said to LW, that's probably where he gets it, I mean,
it's funny that you said that, because one of the things that Kevin and I had talked about, because Kevin and I grew up very differently. His mom and dad are divorced. My mom and dad were, I never saw my mom and dad fight. I mean, he says that I grew up in La La Land, because that's just not normal, but it was normal to me. Mm-hmm. We had dinner every night together, and this is really important to me for Keelan to experience that. But Kevin and I talked a lot about leading by example, and I think that's really impacted him a lot, especially, I know that when they put their helmets on, they kind of go into another universe, but and how he reacts and responds to things, because even whether it's not Keelan or it's another kid, I said, they watch you and they emulate you. And so, he would say, he said something the other day, he said, well, that's just stupid. Keelan was around, but not about that. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't want to hear any words like that, only because, number one, he doesn't know what that means. And I said, he's going to use that out of context. And I said, calling things names isn't really what I want him to do. And he's like, you're right. And you don't think about that, because, you're an adult and you know what it means, and you know how it relates to what you're talking about in that context, but kids don't. And the same thing with, like you said.
Yeah, having older sisters is the problem.
Yeah, but even when you said, you drove in the driveway, and whether it was a pot that you hated how it sat there, you don't mean anything negative about it, but Wyatt doesn't know that. He doesn't know. And so it's a huge game changer in terms of leading by example, because your mom or your dad could tell you, don't do that because I said so. And I swear to God, if I ever say because I said so, I'm going to bash my head against the wall, because that drove me crazy when my mom and dad said that. And so my thought is, And this is why I explain things to Keelan, even when I say no, because this. It's not just because I said no, it's because of certain things. So I'm hoping that I can stick to that. And I understand sometimes you're just pissed off that, they're throwing everything in the floor and you're like, no, stop it. But for the most part, I've tried to sort of take a step back and look at it from his point of view. I mean, it's a good way to live life again, because I felt like even having the race teams, even being in the sport, you get a little bit jaded and you get to be a pessimist and you kind of get angry and just pissed off a lot. And so now, watching the world through his eyes, and maybe you feel this way with your kids, it kind of brings a whole new perspective, a fresh, happy perspective to your life that maybe you didn't have before.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I feel that way a lot more with Wyatt, because I obviously had Carson when I was 27, in the thick of, your career and all the things that you're trying to do. And so with Wyatt, I'm like that more. So
and I think that's a good point that you made, because I had Keelan the day after my 39th birthday, and I think my whole perspective on life just in general has changed. And I never grew up wanting kids, and even when Kevin and I got married, I was very honest, and I said I don't really want kids, and he has always wanted kids. And you just get to that point in your life, and anyway, I did. For me, I felt like we had done a lot in racing, and I was proud of what we had done, but there just felt like there was something missing. And you teeter with that. Everyone says, oh, it's a child, and I'm like, but what if it's not, and what if they're wrong, and what if, and they were right. Everybody was right, but man, it's just it's a game changer. But I don't think I could have fully appreciated everything about it if I was younger.
I agree. From my perspective, it's definitely different. And having Wyatt at the same age, 39, and having Carson at 27, and Kennedy in between, it's you just mature, your experience, just how just your take on parenting him alone. You've had that opportunity to think about it and think through it and kind of get it out there.
Well, and you've been able to watch a lot of your friends,
know,
and
I've made mistakes with the first two.
I mean, and it's a trial and error, and I don't like that. I need a handbook, and if you can give me something to do, I can get it done. But this has been it's thrown me off my game a little bit, because all these books say to do this. Well, it doesn't affect Keelan like that. I'm like, man, I need a good handbook.
This doesn't work. So in talking about life on the road and having Keelan in that environment and not traveling with him, I know you guys kind of don't make the West Coast and night races and things like that. But to me, life on the road presents, challenges to kind of have things normal, right? Mm-hmm. Have traditions. In your family, do you kind of have traditions that are always the one, like we go to Mama Earnhardt's, always Thanksgiving, always Christmas? And what traditions maybe you guys want to set up for your family?
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because last year the holidays last year were really, really hard for me, because our house caught on fire right before Thanksgiving. And so he was a year and a half at that point, and not that he would get everything in Christmas, but it was important enough for me to really, I felt like that it was going to be when we would really start that tradition. And we didn't get to do that in our house, and I struggled. I was really, really upset and really fought through a lot of that at the holidays. So this year, yeah, we do have those. We go to my aunt's for Thanksgiving. I always host Christmas. So this year I'm blowing it out of the water, just because this is really, he'll be 2.5 at this point, and hopefully now he'll kind of start to get it.
Yeah, he'll really get into it.
But I struggled with it. And on the road, it's hard, because I'm very much laid back, and I don't need a lot of things to do. He does. And from the moment he gets up to the moment he goes to bed, he wants to be outside. He doesn't we don't watch TV, we don't do games, we don't do a lot of that stuff. He wants to be outside just exploring. And so at the racetrack, that's a little hard sometimes. And that's sometimes why we don't go. It's just we've had maybe 3 straight weeks, and I'm like, I need a break.
Yeah.
I need him to be at home so we can get out on the mule and ride around and go look at the cows and go do all these things. But he needs that. And so, do I want to be with Kevin? 100%. Want to be there all the time. But I know for Keelan, it's better sometimes that we're not there. When our house first burnt down, the motorhome was off the road, and we lived there. We lived there 4 straight days, and I'm like, this isn't going to work.
Can't do this.
It's fine on the road, because you're coming home. So we ended up moving in with my mom. But thank God we have it there, because he has his. I tried to buy the same mattress that he sleeps on at home, the same sheets. I want to recreate that, because I do know that we're there a lot. But I'm still now trying to find things to do on the road. And luckily, there are so many kids now. It's so funny, because, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, no kids. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden,
lots of small kids.
Lots of small kids. And so that's good for him. But I can go to the other moms and say, where's the nearest zoo, or where's a museum, or so there's a lot of women that have been there, done that before me, that can give me some advice, because I need that help.
Yeah, that's funny. And you're back in your house now.
We are. We just moved in right after Darlington. Yeah. So yeah,
scary. Fires are scary. Dale and I went through one when I was in the 3rd grade. Dale was in the 1st grade. It's actually what prompted us to move in with my dad.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep. We lived with our mom in Kannapolis, and we had these neon circular lights, and one of those caught fire in the kitchen. And next thing I know, we have one trash bag full of our belongings. We're headed to Mama Earnhardt's and headed to live with our dad and Teresa. So
it's scary.
Yeah, it is very scary. And yours happened in the middle of the night. Ours was early in the morning. So
and it was funny because I had woken up. I had started to cough, and I had woken up, and as soon as I woke up, the alarm went off. We had had a fire for about 4 straight days because it was cool, but at night, and we always let it burn out. And I thought, that's odd. And the security company calls, and I walk through there, and I said, there's no fire, there's no flames, we're fine, just don't have the fire department come. And she said, well, here's where I'm showing the alarm. And I said, well, we don't have a fireplace there. She said, well, why don't you go look? I went and looked, and there was 3 foot of black smoke all throughout my basement. And what had happened was we had converted a gas-burning fireplace to a wood-burning fireplace. Not we had it done. Yeah, Kevin and I were in there just converting that over. And something had malfunctioned with it, and the floor joist between our living room and our basement ceiling had caught on fire, so it was burning the insulation. But you would have never known. And not that I was arguing with her, but I'm like, there's no flames, it's fine. Don't send anybody out. Had she not insisted, I would have gone back to bed. My house probably would have burnt down, and God forbid,
who knows?
Exactly. But it didn't happen, thank God. And but it's scary.
Yeah, very scary. Well, we've talked about this already. Keelan's got tons of racing toys, as you post on Twitter. He's got the goat cart and all the Power Wheels toys and all those fun things. And we kind of hit on this, but I'll just directly ask would you support him racing, or would you steer him in another direction?
Would I like to steer him in another direction? Yes, but I mean, it's how insistent he is, and this might be a fad for him right now because he sees Dada do it, and it's fun, and he's just now starting to figure out that he can. Clint Boyer got him a 4-wheeler last year for his 1st birthday. Well, he's just now able to start to really ride it and steer it. So. For all I know, Ricky Carmichael's like, well, I'm going to send him a bike. And I said, please don't. And Stuart says he's going to buy him a quarter midget. And I'm like, I'll shoot you. Please don't do that. But I struggle with that because for all the reasons we just discussed before, it's going to be really hard. But if it's something he really wants to do, I'm going to make Dad handle that. I don't really know because as a mom, do I want him to do that? No, absolutely not. I'd rather him do something much, much safer. But
yeah.
When they come to you and they really, really want to do it, what do you say? You have to sort of, stand behind them and support them. So I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope he wants to play baseball or... There is no football.
No football.
The funny thing, when we found out we were having a boy, we both looked at each other and we both said no racing and no football. Like, it's not going to happen. So luckily we agreed on that, but hopefully there's soccer or something that he wants to do. Yeah.
So does Kevin have brothers and sisters?
He has one sister.
One sister. So all these uncles in the garage are without you being the only child and Kevin just being one of 2. So.
Which is, it's really, really nice because I have 2 nephews on the West Coast and we FaceTime a lot, but in terms of the interaction, he's probably never going to have that other than a couple times a year. So the fact that there are lots of kids in the garage area, albeit girls, it's funny though because Keelan really is very interactive with them, and I love to watch him interact with kids. I'm toying with getting him involved in some maybe half-day programs, but I haven't done that yet because I'm never going to get this time back, and I don't want to let him go just yet. Now, he's my baby, and I want to hold on to him.
I agree with that. That's a difficult choice. We were just thinking through the same thing with Wyatt, and you think about they have this one-on-one time with someone during the day, while we're at work, and I thought, well, he needs to play with other kids, and so we went around and visited places, and we just came back to, no, let's just keep him home. I mean, eventually we're going to have to make that decision for kindergarten or whatever it is, so.
And that's a whole nother stressor for me. School, education to Kevin and I are the most important thing, and so, when I found out I was pregnant, I got books, and I got books about cribs and high chairs and mattresses. I can research to research to research. So now schools are coming up and I'm like, crap, I'm going to need medication. I'm going to research myself to death.
Go on, ask the moms for past experience and just go on your gut.
Yeah. But I can tell you homeschool's probably out. I just don't know that I have the patience for homeschool.
My girls do a 3-day, 2-day program where they go to school 3 days and they are homeschooled 2 of the days.
Oh.
Even the 2 days is when I have to do it. So normally our nanny does it, but when I have to do it,
that's interesting. I didn't realize you could split that. That's kind of I struggle with that because I have a good friend who homeschooled, and I just feel like they miss out on that interaction, and I feel like that socialization is so important. But I also feel like there are things that I kind of want to teach him, and things that I want him to know from me
in your way.
Yeah.
Well, Delaney, I really appreciate you joining me today. We've been trying to match up schedules, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
All right, it's time for Ask Kelley. Remember that you can submit your questions on my Twitter, Earnhardt Kelley, and use the hashtag AskKelley.
All right, our first question is from Big Joe 088. What was your favorite ride at Disney World?
My favorite ride at Disney World was the Aerosmith roller coaster. I think we rode that probably 3 or 4 times in a row. Just really fun, and probably my most favorite part of it was the music. It was just really cool.
At Leanne23, what item in your closet would you never get rid of?
This was a hard question for me. I'm going to say just jeans and jackets. I wear a lot of jackets. Feel like it kind of dresses my jeans up for work and whatnot. But I can't think of anything in my closet that I've had a long time or that I would keep that I would just say, I've got to hang on to this. I wear shoes out like no tomorrow. I can't even usually get them past a season. Pretty much the same thing for clothes. I don't have anything that I could put my finger on that says, hey, I've had that for a long time and I'll never move it.
At Travelin' Dora, what is on your travel bucket list?
I want to go to Hawaii. LW and I have talked about it for quite some time, and I hope that we get to take an anniversary trip there someday. Hint, hint.
At Cap Tiger, do you guys get to go to church?
We do have the opportunity to go to church. Now, most of the drivers, kind of been speaking for Dale Jr., don't get that opportunity, but there's a great program through the racing, which is Motor Racing Outreach. We call it MRO. And they provide services on the race weekends. They provide an activity center for the kids that's Christian-based and do a lot of functions just within the whole year. It's kind of our church community as it relates to the racing industry, so that's pretty cool.
At HRH0308, does Carson have any rules to keep racing, such as chores, homework, grades?
If you ask Carson, she'll probably tell you no. But actually, this year we implemented the grades rule because that was probably the one thing. She does pretty good around the house, does what we ask her to do, keeps her room straight and all those good things. But as it related to her grades, she kind of would take the easy way out. And so we implemented you have to be at this grade or above in order to keep racing. And that seems to have worked pretty well. I've got a couple final thoughts for you, if you don't mind. They're just real quick.
Okay.
One or the other type of thing.
Okay.
Sweet or salty?
Sweet.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Dogs or cats?
Both.
Both. I told Amy last week it says or. Hills or flats?
Oh, flats.
Massage or facial?
Oh, massage.
Cook or eat out?
Eat
I
out.
know this one. We just talked about that over the weekend. That's a good thing for Outback for you guys.
Uh-huh.
Dress or jeans and tee?
Either or, but today I'm in a maxi dress. I think those are more comfortable, and my style. I know you're either or, but my style has completely changed now that I don't have to go into an office in flats or anything.
Yeah.
Wedges, if I have to chase after Keelan, somebody's getting hurt. So I am as comfortable and casual. Love jeans and a t-shirt and tennis shoes, but I like maxi dresses and flip flops.
I pulled up your Pinterest I'm on Pinterest. I never pin things hardly. When it first came out, I got there, and you have tons of dresses on your clothing one.
I love
tons
them.
of dresses.
But I'll pin. I mean, when he's napping or I'm sitting there, on the flight,
Yeah.
I'll pin things. I'm the queen of pinning stuff, and then I forget I pin it.
Right,
but,
me too.
But I love dresses. I don't like to get dressed up, but I like to be comfortable,
Yeah.
and I think maxi dresses are
Yeah.
super comfortable.
Agree. City girl, country girl.
Country girl.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today on Fastlane Family. Appreciate everybody joining us, and I hope you'll join us again next week.
Thanks for listening to Dirty Mo Radio.